My husband, Owen, and I have been married for 2 years. I wasn't good at many things, but I was a great cook. Your food is amazing, he once told me. That compliment, during our first lunch date, made me fall in love with him. After 6 months of dating, we got married. I quit my job to be a full-time housewife. Owen's dad passed away about a year ago, so now it's just the three of us, Owen, his mom, and me. I had hoped we could live alone as newlyweds, but when Owen said, "Mom is struggling after Dad's death," I couldn't say no. Soon, I realized my mother-in-law didn't like me. I had seen mean people at work before, but she was worse. No matter what I did, she found something to criticize. If I was cleaning, she would point out tiny spots and say, "Can't you see this stain?" One time, she made me scrub a stain that wouldn't even come out. She wouldn't let me rest until Owen came home. Sometimes, she woke me up in the middle of the night and said, "We're almost out of plastic wrap, go buy some now, or I won't be able to sleep." Since the grocery store was closed, I had to go to a convenience store instead. If I tried waking Owen, she would yell, "How dare you wake your husband? Housework is a wife's job." To avoid more trouble, I obeyed. The lack of sleep was hard, but what hurt even more was her taking or throwing away my things. "I don't know where your stuff is," she'd say. "Maybe you lost it." Then she'd add, "It's awful to blame others for your mistakes." One day, I found my favorite cardigan in the trash. Shocked, I told Owen, but he just sighed and said, "You can buy a new one." I asked him to talk to her, but he refused, so I used my savings to buy a safe and locked up my valuables. When my mother-in-law found out, she sneered, "You don't even trust your own family. I'd love to meet the person who raised you." She criticized every meal I made. Asterisk too bland, asterisk no flavor at all. But when I tried adding more seasoning, she said, "It's too spicy." I started doubting my cooking, so I asked Owen if he liked the food. "My mom is picky," he said. "I think it tastes great." Cooking, which I used to love, became a chore. After a year of her bullying, I had a realization: staying home all the time was the problem. So, I got a part-time job. Owen had asked me to be a housewife, but if I had known how miserable it would be, I wouldn't have quit my job so easily. Even with a short gap in my work history, my skills were still valued. It felt good to be praised again. But since I was home less, my mother-in-law focused her attacks on breakfast and dinner. She used to eat my food while complaining, but soon, she started barely touching it. Many times, she accidentally knocked over her soup bowl. When I finally asked if something was wrong, she laughed and said, "You think just asking will solve everything? Figure it out yourself." I was left alone to clean up. One night at dinner, she went to the kitchen with her plate. When our eyes met, she smirked. What is she doing? I wondered. Then, right in front of me, she dumped the meal I had made into the trash. "This looks disgusting. Even dog food is better," she said. I looked at Owen, hoping he'd say something, but he just kept eating. I couldn't believe it. I ran to the trash and saw my ruined food. "This is terrible," I said. I turned to Owen, but he wouldn't even look at me. "She probably wasn't feeling well," he muttered. "How could she throw it away right in front of me?" I asked, frustrated. Annoyed, he rubbed his head. "Look, I have work tomorrow. Unlike you with your part-time job, I work all day." "What's wrong with having a part-time job?" I shot back. "I work, I cook, and then your mother throws my food away." My voice shook, but he just sighed. "Claire, you're nagging. Maybe that's why my mom is annoyed too. If it's that bad, just stop cooking," he said and walked off to his room. I stared at his back, realizing he didn't care about me at all. Something inside me snapped. The next morning, I made breakfast as usual. When I called them to eat, Owen sat down, but his mother grabbed her plate and said, "Not even a dog would eat this." Then, she tossed it in the trash. Without a word, I stood up and took away Owen's plate too. "What are you doing?" they both asked. I smiled and said, "Since your mother thinks this isn't even good enough for a dog, you shouldn't eat it either. I'll take responsibility for my own food." Owen protested. "I never said that." "But you didn't deny it, did you?" I replied. I kept asking Owen for an answer. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. "Claire, stop saying nonsense and make Owen's breakfast," my mother-in-law demanded. I looked at her with a smile. "I'm so sorry I've been serving you food that's not even good enough for a dog. Don't worry, I won't cook for you ever again," I said firmly. Then, I calmly ate my breakfast, stood up, and got ready to leave. Wait, Claire, what about my breakfast? Owen asked. Eat whatever you want, I replied without emotion and walked out. Usually, I got home by 5 p.m. But that day, I had some errands. By the time I returned, it was past 8 p.m. Oh, you're so late, we've been waiting for you, Owen and his mother complained, looking hungry. Haven't you eaten yet? I already had dinner, I said casually. My mother-in-law's face turned red with anger. How dare you eat alone, she shouted. Well, I told you I wouldn't cook for you anymore, or were you actually looking forward to my awful cooking? I asked with a smirk. You're talking back to me now? She yelled, slamming the table. Then, suddenly, she got an idea and grinned. If you won't cook, then give back the money Owen spent on food. He pays for everything, so you owe him for all the food you ate, she said confidently. I couldn't help but laugh. What's so funny? She snapped. Since I started working part-time, I've been paying for all the living expenses. That was Owen's idea, I explained. Owen had once told me, Mom doesn't like you working, but if you pay for the expenses, it might make her feel better. It had been over a year since I started working, which meant I had been covering the costs for most of our marriage. My mother-in-law, unaware of this, turned to Owen in shock. Is that true, Owen? She demanded. Well, you wanted more pocket money, so. He mumbled weakly. He admitted that while I paid for everything, he had been using his own money for his mother's needs and his own spending. You've been spending quite a lot on fancy meals, I pointed out. What? She asked. I found a flyer in the mailbox for frequent customers at an expensive restaurant, I said. I had thought she made her own lunch, but after seeing that flyer, I got suspicious. When I checked the trash, I found receipts from the same restaurant. If anyone should be paying back money, it should be you, I added. They were both speechless. After all, it was my hard-earned money. Don't worry, I'll send you a proper bill, I said with a smile. My mother-in-law trembled with anger. Wait, what do you mean by a bill? Owen finally spoke. Sensing something was wrong, he stood up, looking nervous. I want a divorce, and of course, I'll ask for alimony, I said. Divorce? He repeated, shocked. Then, as if realizing something, he smirked. You think you can afford to live on your own with just a part-time job? He mocked. About that. I've been offered a full-time job, I replied confidently. What? Owen looked stunned. I've also decided where I'll live, I added. I planned to stay with my parents for a while, but Owen didn't know that. My words hit him hard. I'll let my lawyer handle everything from now on, I said before walking away. I went to my bedroom, grabbed the suitcase I had packed the night before, and walked toward the door. Owen stood frozen beside the dining table, still in shock. I ignored him and walked past. Claire, I'm sorry, he finally said. I stopped and turned around. Sorry for what? What do you mean? It was hard to choose between you and Mom, but I never said anything bad about your cooking, did I? He tried to defend himself. He still didn't get it. I finally saw things clearly. This isn't about taking sides. You stayed silent when she threw my food away. You let her harass me every day. I begged for your help, but you never did anything. Playing the victim doesn't erase the fact that you hurt me, I told him. Owen started crying, realizing too late what he had done. I glanced at him briefly, then continued toward the door. Just as I reached for the handle, my mother-in-law called out. I never meant for things to end like this. I was only trying to give you a little advice, though maybe I went too far sometimes, she said. She had no idea how serious her actions were. I took care of this house, yet your final words to me are just excuses. Well, at least now you won't have to worry about being caught spending all that money on fancy meals, I said. She stood frozen, her eyes wide as if she had stopped breathing. I left and returned to my parents' house. They welcomed me with open arms, already aware of everything. My lawyer later told me that everyone in the neighborhood knew my mother-in-law was useless at housework. Apparently, my father-in-law had done everything before he passed. After that, Owen and his mother had survived on takeout and restaurant meals. To them, I had just been a free housekeeper. Word about our divorce spread quickly. Owen's co-workers and bosses found out, and it became a huge embarrassment for him. Now, he and his mother are struggling financially. They never saved any money and wasted everything they had. On top of that, they still have to pay me alimony. With their bad reputation, no one wants to work for them, and they can't even afford the kind of food they used to eat. Owen kept texting me, begging me to come back. My mother-in-law also sent messages full of excuses, but I didn't bother reading them. Now, I enjoy cooking again. I make sweets and bake cakes on weekends, sharing them with my family and coworkers. Being surrounded by people who appreciate my cooking is helping me regain my confidence. I finally feel hopeful about the future. Please leave your comments. We're looking forward to your comments and channel subscriptions. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching till the end.